All right, all right. Hi, loves. I hope you're having an amazing day. Today, I'm so excited. We have an amazing guest. This is Dr. James B. Stein, who is a relational communication scholar with a special focus on uncertainty and diet network interaction. His ability to translate scholarly research into hard hitting takedown videos has gained him mild popularity on TikTok and has allowed him to provide a feminist perspective blended with existing academic research. Essentially, if you appear on his channel, it means you messed up. Hi, Dr. James Stein.
Hey, and by the way, being on this podcast, you did not mess up. Don't worry about that.
Thank you for being my guest today. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Me too. I'm pumped for it.
Okay, yeah, since you are pretty well known, I say, as an academic on TikTok, and you talk about relationships and sex, I wanted to mention this video that I've heard on TikTok recently that I find very toxic, and I want to see what you think about that.
Oh no.
And the video goes,
women say that all men want to do is have sex with them. You are correct.
I think you can hear what I was starting to say on that video. Totally, completely, absolutely wrong in pretty much every way that you can be wrong. I mean, that video, which is, of course, Heartbreak Nino. If you don't know the Heartbreak Nino saga, it's not hard to find. It's this dude who has these really, really dumb takes. He has been dunked on by every single person on. There's an area of TikTok that I live on called petty TikTok, like petty talk.
Petty.
Everybody on petty TikTok came for this guy and absolutely just obliterated him. But he represents a fairly mainstream way of thinking on social media for men, which is rooted in this idea of well, men want sex, me want sex, dewy sex, and it's no, humans are complex in general, and the minute you hear somebody trying to separate men and women, you don't need to listen to them. It's just trash opinion no matter what.
Right. And it's women want sex too.
Yeah. To be fair, in his experience, women probably don't want a whole lot of sex. So,
Well, I was thinking if he's saying, ladies, if you're saying a man only wants to have sex with you, you're right. What is this saying about all these guys that are oh yeah, I just want to have sex? What is going on? Why are there guys that just want to have sex?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look,
right?
There are guys out there who only want to eat cookies and candy. But at the end of the day, you got to eat your vegetables and your proteins and your carbohydrates too. You know what I'm saying? If somebody wants all of just one little thing, it's probably because they're in a not so healthy place and they're probably trying to overcompensate for something. For example, the fact that they're not having any sex and they feel like they ought to be having sex. And that's what it comes down to with a lot of these guys. They feel like they deserve, they feel like they've done sex. And I'm obsessed with TikTok. So there's a sound on TikTok going around now, and it's where's my treat? I've been a good little girl. And it's that's how they feel. They're where's my sex? I didn't insult all women today, so where's my sex? And it's that's not how sex occurs. That's not how any sort of interaction occurs. You need to have a healthy balance. Otherwise you start obsessing. And then when you start obsessing, you get into a bad spot.
Yeah. Do you think this is kind of the same as being a fuckboy?
No. I think it's the opposite. And I truly admire what social media has done with that term. They have splintered it off into much more healthy ways of understanding. So now we have the term himbo. Are you familiar with himbos?
No.
So a himbo is a big, beefy, buff idiot. Super nice. He doesn't care. It's this dude who's he's basically just head empty, just nice, ordinary dude. And that's the type of person who's going to do well on the dating scene because they look good and they feel good and they're not here to judge people. They're not here to control their partners. And that's what a himbo is. It's a good thing. And it has evolved from like the fuckboy terminology. Whereas this dude is, I would put him closer to an incel than a fuckboy, which is, I would say, the exact opposite.
So like when you're, I mean, I'm now in my 30s, so I don't encounter these guys as much. But when I was in my 20s, I encounter a lot of guys that literally just want to have, casual sex or a one night stand. Isn't that just what this guy is saying though?
Yes and no, because, if you're on the dating scene, let's say, and you just want sex, that's totally cool, right? You make
Right.
you make your intentions known. And like, I've been through phases where I wasn't looking for anything serious and I was just looking for, looking to date around. And that's one thing. But dudes like Heartbreak Nino and these other toxic men who I tackle on my TikTok platform, it's not about this. It has almost nothing to do with the sex for them. This is about control. This is about them trying to reframe the narrative in a way that makes them look like the protagonist or the victim or both. And so it's got very little to do with sex in and of itself. Sex is like the means through which these men achieve both victimhood and superiority.
Huh, that's interesting. Because I always thought, when I was younger, if I meet someone who is well rounded and, we have great conversations, he has a good personality, we have great sex, like this is amazing. But then, I would meet guys that literally just wants to have sex. And when I was in my 20s, like, I don't care, like I can explore too, right? Like I want to have sex too. Like I'm pretty sexually assertive. Even though I was still anxious and figuring things out, I was pretty good at hiding. But like, I don't get the narrative of like women don't want to have sex. Like women never want to have sex. What the hell?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I was saying, like if that's your view on women, then it probably means that women just don't want to have sex with you, which is tough.
Like
So
what's the common denominator here?
that's what I'm saying. Like it's like you need to look in the mirror and figure out exactly what it is that you're doing wrong to produce an environment where every woman that you encounter is completely uninterested in sex, right? And moreover, if you're only interested in sex, like maybe find another hobby. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to attract partners by being like, give me sex, I need the sex. Like that's not, nobody finds that attractive. Nobody finds that attractive at all.
No, no one. It actually signals that you're immature and you have nothing else to offer. Like you
Yeah.
have no value.
Yeah. And maybe you'll get lucky from someone who's only looking for sex every now and then, but like most people aren't only looking for sex. Like even if you're casually dating, you still want somebody that you can have a basic conversation with.
Right. Yeah. And even more than that, someone that you enjoy spending time with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, what an interesting dude.
That's a word for it.
I wanted to talk about this other guy that I saw on TikTok that's preaching about never being a beta.
Mm.
And I don't know if this was originally from TikTok or not, but it's basically uh it triggered my mind like what is going on, because in this video he seemed very aggressive. He was like, never be a beta, and he was yelling and screaming. So I was confused, like what is this situation? Why are some men so obsessed about not being a beta? What is going on?
Well, let me start off by saying that specific video, I was very confused by it as well. And I'll tell you this, after I posted that video, I did a live stream on my TikTok and he hopped on.
Whoa.
And and he said two things to me. He said, one, I was joking. And two, you've mischaracterized and miscontextualized what I'm saying. And I was like, well, which is it? Did I take you out of context or were you joking? At the end of the day, he wasn't joking and I didn't take him out of context. There is this weird obsession with men about being like a quote unquote alpha, which if you're not familiar with it, the term alpha male comes from a book written by a dude named David Mech, I think it's pronounced. He was writing about wolves in captivity. And what he found is that when in captivity, one wolf tends to emerge as the leader, as the alpha. He later found in subsequent research that when you're observing wolves in the wild, that dynamic does not exist, right?
Oh,
And so he wasn't even writing about humans, and he's come out and spoken out against it. And he's like, I hate that these men think that my research is telling them to act a certain way. It's not. And so this obsession comes from a lack of confidence and a lack of success. It's this idea of I don't know what I'm doing wrong, so everybody else must be wrong. I must be right because I am an alpha, right? And I don't even know what these terms mean anymore. I really don't, because there's alpha male, beta male, delta male, gamma male, there's omega male, and then there's the mysterious sigma male.
ooh,
I think I got them on there. I think I got them all on that list. The sigma male is just like, it's this really weird way in which these quote dating coaches are walking back their toxic mentality. Because now they're like, oh, the sigma male is the rarest male of all. He's
ooh.
somebody, he's not a loner, but he's independent, and he's giving, and he's caring, and he's strong, but he knows how to control himself. And I'm like, you're just describing a grown-up.
Yes, yes.
Like, you're
A
just
grown-up.
describing an adult.
You're describing a grown-up, healthy man with a good enough emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and it's what you were saying before. It's this idea of immaturity and infantilizing the dating scene, where it's like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I make boom boom in the vajayjay, and all these guys, they don't say that they're sigma males. They say, well, I'm an alpha. But even more rare than the alpha is the sigma male, who is, this like, ooh, like mysterious, like, and it's like, man, it's kind of like, you know what it reminds me of? It actually reminds me a lot of Biggie Smalls. In
Huh.
his famous song, The 10 Crack Commandments, one of the most important things that he says is that real bad boys move in silence and violence. And in the song, Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangsta, they say that real gangsters don't flex nuts because real gangsters know they got them. And so
Mm.
if you have to scream, I'm an alpha, never be a beta, like if you have to do that, you are probably in a bad position.
Right. Wow. Biggie still teaching us now.
Right?
That is so interesting because, like, I don't see the point of, you know, becoming an alpha male. Like, what is the point of it? Like, why is it so appealing? And now that I know that it comes from like this wolf thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
the guy that published the book also came out and said, like, please stop quoting this. This is not a thing for humans. Uh, I really like. What do you think is so appealing to some of these guys to like wanna just be an alpha male?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it obviously comes back to toxic masculinity and patriarchal blueprinting, where men have spent their whole lives being told and learning and relearning this idea of uh, to be a successful male, you must be highly masculine, you must be big and strong, you must not care about anything in your life, you must be devoid of compassion and empathy, and that's what makes a man a man. And so there's a lot of men who are just implicitly taught these things. And so they are on social media and they find a guy who is, traditionally attractive, or maybe just very loud. And they listen to what the things are saying, but it doesn't really matter what they're saying. These folks are interested in the person, right? In this alpha character
Yeah.
that's being created by these coaches. And so I think that is where a lot of this idealization comes from. And unfortunately, it's kind of a vicious circle, because you've got the dating coaches who are advising these men, do this, 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 and that. It doesn't work,
Right.
obviously. And then they come back to the dating coach who says, oh, well, you just didn't do it right because I'm the coach. I'm the end all be all. So you must do as I say. Yeah. And it's honestly, it's kind of like those gym bros who just go to the gym and they thought that they were going to get big to impress women, right? And then all they're doing is impressing each other. That's what this is.
What an analogy. I was thinking about this situation where, like, I meet some men that are, big and buff and traditionally physically beautiful, but they're so hollow inside. That they're not confident. A lot of them actually, have issues with their penis, or they have issues with themselves, or they never see themselves as like good enough.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times when people talk about confidence, they just talk about the physical appearance. Like, oh, look this way, the confidence comes. But I feel like the confidence is from the fucking inside.
Yeah. And if you talk to like bodybuilders and Instagram influencers, they are like, oh no, I have very bad body dysmorphia. Like they are like not well mentally. And then of course, many of these people take performance enhancing drugs that fuck up all their hormones, and then they get even more insecure. And, I realized long ago that I was never going to be like a big buff dude. But I could still, rock it in a 2-piece, as it were, right? I'm not going to wear a 2. I mean, I guess I would wear a 2-piece if I had to, but you know what I mean? Like I can like go out without a shirt on, knowing that I am built like a Tim Burton character but also like the Tim Burton character who does yoga and lifts weights and plays basketball. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's like, these are things that we can do to increase our confidence, like becoming more aware of what our body is asking us for. And I think as we start listening to our bodies as individuals more, that it will help us to achieve that level of confidence that ultimately produces a more empathetic, compassionate, and successful partner / lover.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally. Because I have, my fair share of casual sex in my 20s, and I would get with someone that's like very, physically attractive, but then they would be so insecure. It's hard to reconcile. Like you're, outside with your shirt on, like your shirt so tight, your button's gonna pop any moment now. You seem so confident. And then when we get back to the apartment, you're like a different person. It's so interesting because I've also had a moment where I realized like, okay, this is my body and this is what it's going to always look like. And I should be okay with it. Right. But that doesn't mean like I shouldn't be healthy. I should just let it go. And of course, like I should always be healthy. And being healthy means a lot of things, right? Like eating healthy, exercise regularly, and keep a healthy mind.
Chase those endorphins, chase them.
Right. Through like mindfulness stuff. So like when I do these things, it makes me feel good. And then I look in the mirror and I feel like, yeah, you know what? Like I'm hot. Like I feel good about myself.
Yeah, you should feel good about yourself. Everyone should feel good about themselves, except for these men. These men deserve to feel like shit. Change your mentality, and then I'll be okay with you feeling good about yourself again. But it's the same thing every time. And they're so predictable.
Change, though. We can all change.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a really good point. Like you see a lot of these men who are like performing this confident character. And then you get back to the bedroom where like things are really supposed to happen. And then things don't really work or don't really happen. And then at the same time, I think many of these men then rely on you, the woman, to comfort them. And, oh no, it's okay. It's okay. You can perform. I know, I believe in you that you can perform. And it's like, when are we going to stop coddling these dudes and just at some point say, if you can't perform in bed, it's a you problem. I don't know. Watch more porn. Like do what you need to do to get more confident in yourself.
Definitely
but like,
don't watch more porn.
I mean, whatever it takes to, whatever it takes to figure out what you like or what you need or what you're good at.
Totally.
And
totally.
It comes down to, practicing the thing, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of questions from my followers on TikTok and Instagram, and it's from both sides. Like, I have women that ask me, like, my husband no longer desires me. I feel so undesired. I have men that say the same thing, a lot more men than women, but that's a whole different issue to talk about. But like there are women that are not having sex because their partner don't want to have sex with them, And it's like, what's going on here? Like, if you're with your partner and you're in a loving relationship, like, why can't we have, somewhat regular sex where we can connect and be intimate? But some of these men, like I said, some of these men, they still don't have the self-confidence, right?
Yeah.
They might
And
physically look like they do, but they don't actually have that self-confidence.
yeah, and sometimes you just don't have good sexual energy with another person. Like I have had good sex, I have had bad sex. Sometimes you don't, and we'll probably talk about this later. I feel like you need to establish that relatively early in the relationship. Otherwise, you could find yourself committed to somebody and in love with somebody even who doesn't get you off, which is
Right.
tough.
Oh
And
my
then,
gosh.
and you can work through it with other people, but then like maybe they don't want to work through it. Maybe they are insecure and that puts up another hurdle that you just another thing to jump over. And I'm not saying relationships are always easy. They definitely require work, but at some, there are some things that are just simply non-negotiable.
Right. Sexual energy, I feel, is either you have it or you don't.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely. And
that's my belief.
you learn it pretty quick too.
Yeah, yeah. But a lot of us stay in the same relationship even when you don't have the sexual energy, hoping, they buy books like make your relationship hotter, or like, hot relationship, like how to ignite desires and this and that. I'm like, at the same time though, if you never had it, like, try to recall, right? Like, if you never had it, it's probably not there.
Yeah, it's one thing if things were good and then
Right.
they petered off, but if it was never there. And that's like another problem that I have with a lot of these books, like how to like reignite your love life, or like 10 easy ways to make your partner attracted to you again. Like, and not to like get up on my feminist soapbox here, but like most of them cater to the male experience. And there's an inherent toxicity in that because one, again, we're coddling these men who probably, instead of getting a pat on the back, they probably need a slap on the butt. And two, we put ourselves in a position where the responsibility is not on, both partners, if we're assuming heterosexuality, right? It's not on both partners equally. It's very much on, like, is your man no longer attracted to you? Here's some things you can do, where it's like, well, maybe the problem is with him. Maybe he has some issues that he's not wanting to dig up. Maybe y'all have to work through it together by going to therapy or something. Or maybe you just need to fucking dump him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's like a hard conversation to have with someone
Yeah.
that's been like in a long-term relationship with this person. They thought they would have a life with this person. They thought
Mm-hmm.
that this was their, best friend for life.
Yeah.
And now you're basically like spitting truth. Now basically you're saying you have to leave the person because you never had sexual energy and it's never going to work.
And the thing is, the longer you're with a dissatisfying person, the more difficult it's going to become to leave that relationship. You get more and more invested, you get more and more committed, you start to feel like there's less possible alternatives out there. And then you turn around and it's been 15 years of dissatisfaction. And that's
Right.
tough.
That's really tough. And I'm sure, like, in the past too, I've been in a relationship when after I get out of it, my network, like my friends or my parents or my acquaintances said, yeah, like you guys just didn't seem right together. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, why the hell did you not tell me before?
Yeah. I mean, well, now you're speaking my language, right? Because that's what my
Right.
dissertation was about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the network plays a really big role in there, but only if you're willing to take them into consideration.
right. Like, I feel I would have taken them into consideration, but no one has told me before. Is there like such a phenomenon where your friends know you're not with the right person, but they don't want to tell you?
I don't know if it's necessarily that they don't want to tell you. It might be that they don't know how to tell you. So there's some really interesting literature here. I think about Malcolm Parks, who interviewed like the friends and family of a couple. And what he found is that those friends and family, they were able to predict breakup rates with 95% accuracy, which is
What?
wild. Yeah, and then Sue Sprecher went on. She did more investigative work in this, and what she ended up finding out is that network members who don't like a relationship, not only do they feel like they play a role in influencing that relationship, they do it on purpose, and they talk about how they purposefully try and sabotage these relationships subtly. Um, but they're like, no, because I want what's best for my friend, and this person is not best for my friend. So if you don't, what I'm trying to say is, if you don't listen to them, they'll find a way to try to hurt your relationship, which might just drive you further apart from them, and then everybody's less happy.
Wow, that's really interesting. I've always felt like my friends support me regardless, and that's why,
Mhm.
if they feel like if I had picked a person, well, that's kind of that's the person that Tara picked.
Yeah.
There is no need to share our concerns.
Yeah. I mean, people will share concerns if it's a huge problem. Like if there's like abuse happening,
Right.
or if there's like just a dramatically incorrect match going on. But for the most part, it's like if you're just like mildly dissatisfied, like your friends, like they have your best interest at heart. And so, they've got part of that story, and you've got, a bigger part of that relationship, but they're not going to try and break you up necessarily. It's just that when they feel like things are going wrong, they may do little things to try and stand in the way. And as a person in a relationship, it behooves you to pay attention to that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Well, in my 20s, because I attended school throughout, like college, master's, and then PhD, I was in a lot of long distance relationship. And I heard that you're currently in a long distance relationship. How's that going?
I am, and it's going well. It's going really well. This is my second long distance relationship and my second in a row, separated by a couple of years, but it's going nicely. She lives about a 4-hour drive away. So, we get to see each other a couple times a month, and we're both like really independent people. So like the long distance element of it kind of works in our favor. We do a lot of the idolizing that's talked about in the literature. We're
Mm.
always very happy to see each other. And we text each other fairly regularly. We FaceTime, we call each other sometimes, but for the most part, we just, share TikToks with each other. It's going well. And, without saying too much about my current relationship, things are good.
Yeah.
In part because, we understand each other's worldview quite well and have a lot of agreements there.
Huh. I did a TikTok video that got removed about long distance relationship sex, and basically like just schedule a Zoom time and like masturbate together. Do you think that's something that you recommend to people in long distance relationships, or should you wait until you see each other again?
I don't know. I've done that in other relationships. I will say I have not done it in this one. I have done it in other relationships, and like it's okay. Um, I think that if it's something that you're into, like if you're really into like sexting, or if you're really into like role playing with your partner, like I would say do it. But if you're not, don't try and force it. Like, don't be like, oh, well, I'm not going to see you for another 3 weeks, so we should definitely schedule some like dirty, sexy talk time. We've like my current partner and I barely do that sort of thing. And it does not inhibit our sex life at all. So I think it's relationship specific.
Interesting. So it does not affect your like sexual energy because you don't like, continuously create this like sexual tension.
No, I mean, not yet, right?
Right. But like, I mean, you're saying every relationship is different.
Yeah, I would say go, like you said, sexual energy is important. And so for some people, they need constant like reminders and words of affirmation related to their sexual performance. And for other folks, they're like, no, yeah, when we get there, cats and dogs, but in between, we're chilling.
Yeah. Do you think that that's a characteristic that contributes to a successful long distance relationship?
Sexual chemistry.
No, like someone that like you have to be someone that's not, that your love language isn't like having to be together a lot, like basically someone that is independent.
I think it helps. I struggle to imagine somebody who is like extremely high maintenance, constantly needing like touch and affirmation, doing well in a long distance relationship. But at the same time, I was in a long distance relationship and I was like, oh, never doing that again. And then now I find myself in another one satisfied. So I don't know, maybe it's because I experienced personal growth, or it's just this particular partner, it works a little bit better, or it's my life chapter, who knows. But yeah, I had like sworn off of them, and now I find myself neck deep in one.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. Because if you were like, oh, never again, and then you're like, just kidding.
Right? Psych. Like, no, like it just kind of happened that way.
Well, yeah, you want to be with who you think is the one, right? Like it's the right person for you,
Yeah.
regardless of the situation at the time. I sometimes talk about that, like timing might not be right sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've all had like, what do they call it? Like the one that got away. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it do be like that. And like this is something I'll say, and this is something to take it back to like the insecure men on TikTok. Rumination is such a negative characteristic. Like if you've been in a relationship that did not go well, the worst thing you can do is keep thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. Like grieve, and grieve for the appropriate amount of time, but do not do not obsess over it. Do not make it your world. Do not compare every single partner to this person. We are programmed to do that sort of thing,
Yeah.
right? We are programmed to make comparisons, and that's healthy to a point. And then there comes a time where it's like, well, this person's different.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you balance that well.
Right. I think a lot of people do that, comparisons.
Oh yeah.
Like, well, my current partner doesn't have ABC like my ex did.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to, right? Because relationships don't happen in a vacuum. They one relationship will teach you about your next relationship, which will teach you about your next one and your next one. And if you just like wipe your hands clean of every single partner each time you break up, you're never really going to learn about who you are and what you want. So you need to make those comparisons, but you can't obsess, right? There's a balance.
Yeah. I heard from one of the people I know that, like, she talks about how, oh my gosh, my ex used to, buy me a lot of gifts, and her love language is gift, right? So like my ex used to buy me a lot of gifts and my current partner doesn't. So I just feel a little bit undesired and dissatisfied. What do you think about that? Do you think like then someone like should you try to adapt your love language to the partner you're currently with that you feel like you love? Or do you think like that's then just not the right partner for you because they can't speak your language?
Well, I mean, I gotta say, like, I am by no means sold on the whole love language thing. Like, I've considered making a video on TikTok about this, but it's it's rooted in research, but it is not based off of research. And most people who write self-help books like that are doing it so that they can sell a book, not so that they can actually teach people about how to do relationships.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, if you like receiving gifts and your partner refuses to give you gifts, maybe sit
your
down.
partner doesn't refuse to give you gifts, but they just don't do it routinely because it's not their language. It's not something that they naturally do.
Yeah, like, I mean, I am not a big gift giver. When I do them, I try to make them meaningful, but I'm not big on it. So I don't know, if you really like receiving gifts and like that's your way of having someone show their appreciation to you, you can tell them that, but I mean, it's going to come off a little vain. It's like, well, you're not giving me things, and so therefore I don't feel like you value me. That's not the best way to approach stuff.
I feel like that's the most difficult love language to express because it does, like you said, it does come off vain sometimes. Like, oh, I love gifts. Like, that's my language, right? Especially if you're just starting to date someone, it just seems like you just want stuff from them.
I mean, shit, I love getting stuff.
Right?
Give
But
me
like, it is
stuff.
a legitimate, I feel like it's a legitimate love language.
I mean, I think to a point. I also think that if somebody isn't showering you with presents and that makes you feel less than worthy, it makes me feel like you probably have some self-reflection to do.
That's true. Huh. That is a really good point. You have some self-reflection to do.
And that doesn't mean that if sometimes when I see my partner, for example, sometimes I'll have like a little thing for her. right? Like she mentioned one time, she was like, ah, man, I can't find this lip balm. And I happened to be near a Sephora and I found it. And I gave it to her the next time she was there. And she was like, oh, that's so sweet.
That is very thoughtful.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to attentiveness. And so are you really looking for your partner to give you gifts? Or are you looking for your partner to be attentive to your needs? Like if you mention, I like this one specific brand of lip gloss and I can't find any, and then your partner's got it for you the next time you're there, like that shows attentiveness.
Holy shit.
So
Maybe it's that, it's attentiveness.
it might be. And this is obviously why I'm not totally sold on the whole love language thing, but I'm sitting here and I'm like trying to imagine a world where somebody gets that little gift and is like, would you spend $15 on this? You're going to have to do better than that. Right. Like, I don't think most people would say, unless it's like a sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship. Like,
Right.
other than that,
a different ball game.
yeah, that's a totally different type of thing because that's a highly transactional relationship.
Right.
But like imagine just like giving your partner a $500 necklace out of nowhere. If my partner gave me a $500 necklace out of nowhere, I'd be like,
what did you do wrong?
Yeah, I'd be like, dope. Thanks. I didn't need this.
Right.
I didn't need this. You know what I'm saying? So like,
and if you felt like you needed it, maybe like you said, maybe it was about something else.
Yeah,
maybe
that's what I'm saying.
It's not the gift.
I would like a nice little chain though, unrelated.
Just a shout out if you're
just just in case somebody happens to be listening, birthdays in a few months, whatever.
Oh my gosh, this is such a good conversation. I am moving on to my next segment, which is going to be really fun. I call them 10 quickies with Dr. Tara. And basically what's going to happen is I'm going to say a word and I want you to share what you think about it. Okay.
I can do that.
I'll share one word and then like you think, okay.
Perfect.
All right. Number 1, anal.
Good, as long as you have the proper hygiene.
Number 2, open relationships.
I proceed with caution. There's a lot of room for jealousy and envy there, but if you feel like it's right to pursue, talk about it and pursue it.
Number 3, threesomes.
Again, something that needs to be discussed and talked about. It needs to be like totally mutual. Both people need to be enthusiastic if you're going to do this with your partner.
Number 4, bite marks.
Can you see them while I'm teaching? If they can be seen while I'm teaching, there's going to be a problem. But otherwise,
why would it be a problem though?
I don't need my students seeing teeth marks on like my neck or arms and being like, what happened? That's the conversation that I don't need to. And I don't think anybody at work needs to have that conversation unless you work in the adult film industry.
Right. Okay. Well, which is next, my next word, porn.
My thoughts on that are give our sex workers health insurance.
Nice. Number 6, interracial dating.
All for it. It bothers me that's like still a taboo topic in 2021, but it has my full support.
Yeah, like I'm in an interracial relationship and I still feel like when I go to certain parts of the world, certain parts of the US, I get looked at a lot.
It's so gross.
Next is swinging.
Again, you got to have all the trust in the world to do that sort of thing. So I do it under the context of extremely open and honest communication.
Right? Like go overboard with your communication.
Yeah. Ask questions, do debriefs afterward, do prefaces before. That's going to take a lot of work in order to be successful.
Number 8, having sex on the first date.
I mean, as long as both people are enthusiastically consensual about it, I say, yeah, you got to get it out of the way. This is actually a trend. I'm going to ramble here. This is actually a trend that's been on TikTok lately of mostly women saying, you should be avoiding sex on the first date because if you have sex on the first date, it means he doesn't care about you, which is, of course, a false categorization. I would argue that sex is an extremely important part in determining whether or not you want to have a long-term relationship with someone. So maybe it doesn't have to be on the first date, but like, I'm all for it.
All right, number 9. Number 9, love at first sight.
I mean, that one's total bullshit.
Clarify.
Love is a mutual experience. And so the idea that you could be in love with someone the moment that you see them is extremely selfish. It fails to take into consideration that they also have to be into you as well. And let's not forget that love at first sight comes from Romeo and Juliet, who were like 15 and 13. So I think you might just be experiencing a combination of infatuation and the halo effect, which can be extremely toxic if not recognized.
Well put. And last one, reverse cowgirl.
Great in theory, painful in practice.
Painful in practice. All right. Well, that was it for our episode with Dr. James B. Stein. Thank you so much, my loves, for listening. Dr. James Stein, do you have any last words?
Yeah, find me on TikTok for all of your delicious feminist propaganda. My handle is Jucifer, J3WCIFER.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, loves, and have an orgasmic day.
Thanks for listening. This was Love Bites. Love Bites. By Dr. Tara. Follow Dr. Tara on social media at lovebites.co. Have an orgasmic day.